Hello again, I'm Michael Mallory, and welcome to the Free Tourism Publicity tutorial number 2. This is number 2 of 5. I'm doing this all week. And we're going to teach you how to get free publicity for your tourism or travel business. And today we're going to be talking about media, what the media likes, and how to find the right media for your business. So let's get started. 5 things you should know about the media, because you need to know what they like, what they don't like. Let's start with the media. They're inundated with bad requests. They get bad press releases and bad story ideas all day long. Story ideas like, we just promoted John Smith to the CEO of the Marriott Hotel Group. Nobody cares, except Marriott. Nobody at all cares out there in the world that John Smith has been promoted. Now, if Arnold Schwarzenegger was just promoted to the board of directors, that might make news. But someone who's just in the industry, who no one has ever heard of outside of the industry, that's not news. They get inundated with those types of things all the time, and the large corporations are famous for putting out these kinds of news releases that mean nothing to anybody. Remember, a news release has to be news that anyone cares about. And remember, in today's society, you want to be entertained as much as informed. So the news has to be both entertaining and informative. Anyway, don't give them bad requests. They're on tight deadlines, which means they've got stories to finish, whether it's for TV, radio, or print. Don't bother them right up next to the deadline. In most news organizations, this is going to be towards the end of the day. Don't call somebody at 4 p.m., whatever their time is. They're trying to finish up for the day. They're not looking for news story ideas. They've dug up whatever they're going to get for that day already. The best time to contact a journalist is between 10 and 11 in the morning, not on a Monday and not on a Friday. Remember that. But they're on tight deadlines. If they call you because you've sent them a story idea and they like it, answer the phone. Respond to their email promptly. Do not make them wait. If you need to get an additional piece of information that you don't have and you need to call them back or email them back, tell them you'll get it to them within a half an hour and make sure that happens. That's about the longest they're going to wait for you, or they're going to go on to the next potential story source and you are done. And you might be done forever with them. So get things to them when they need it. They serve a particular audience, and so should you. You should have an ideal guest, and all of your publicity and all of your marketing should be targeted at that type of guest. Doesn't mean that's the only kind that's going to read it or be interested in you. But if you're targeting 25-year-olds, you should not also be targeting retired people, and vice versa. Stay with your particular audience and find members of the media that serve your particular audience to send story ideas to. Don't send the wrong story idea to the wrong journalist. Journalists tend to be skeptical. You've got the next great thing. Well, gee whiz, they see 20 great things a day, supposedly great things. They like to dig and find out what the real story is. And if you've got a really truly good original idea, yeah, they're going to be all over it. But if you don't, they're going to be like, okay, been there, done that, read the book. They're skeptical. Give them what they want. Give them enough to get their mouth watering, so to speak, to get them hungry for the story idea. And then let them dig. And they'll find out what they need to find out. And then they need a reason to do the story, and we've been talking about this. The story has to be something interesting, it has to be timely, it has to be news. And it has to tie in, or it has to tie into something that's in the news. So without a good reason to do the story, unless they've just got blank space they need to fill, meaning there are no story ideas that day, which is rare, they're not going to run your story. They're not going to talk about it. They're not going to have you as a guest on their radio show. Whatever it is you're trying to achieve with your publicity, they're not going to do it unless there's a good reason for the story. So give them a good reason. Give them a nice, juicy story. All right. Now, there are 5 things you should never say to the media. Because, they're picky people. They tend to be skeptical, and they are inundated with requests, as we talked about in the last section. Never lie to them. Their job is to dig up the truth. If you lie to them, they will find out, and they will burn you for it. They will publicize the fact that you are a lying liar who lies. Don't do that. Look at Brian Williams of NBC News in the United States. Whether he lied on purpose or whether he lied inadvertently about his helicopter coming under gunfire in Afghanistan, it doesn't matter if he remembered it wrong. He lied repeatedly about it. Again, doesn't matter if it was on purpose. And now his career may or may not be over with any true news organization. I would venture a guess that he's probably going to be on his own doing, human interest stories or something like that, but that he's not going to be running a major news organization anymore, or the figurehead of such a news organization. So don't lie to them. They will find out. Never say something is off the record. If you're talking to a journalist, it's on the record. Period. Whatever you say, journalists are not your friends. They are working professionals. Anything you say can and will be used for you or against you, but it will be used. So never say something's off the record. If you want to be an unnamed source, that's a different situation. But if you're trying to get good publicity for your tourism business, you probably shouldn't be an unnamed source. That's not the kind of news media you're trying to get. And also, you want to be quoted. You don't want to be an unnamed source, because otherwise how are you going to get the publicity? Never make claims you can't back up. We're the world's greatest. Well, quantify that, please. The world's greatest how? You have more cockroaches than anyone else and you've counted them. Don't make up claims that you can't back up. Now, if you're the #1 mini golf course in Myrtle Beach and you have the numbers of guests to back that up, go ahead, make the claim. But if you're not, don't make it up. Tell the truth. Don't make up stories. Never, ever, ever, ever badmouth a competitor. Don't talk about them. Use your grandmother's advice. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Don't badmouth a competitor, because it only makes you look bad. It looks like a case of sour grapes for you, and that you are just trying to trash the competition to make yourself look better. And that always makes you look bad. Look at any reality television show where people trash talk the other people. It only makes them look bad. Makes great drama, but we're not looking for great drama here. We are looking for good publicity. Now, I'm a believer that almost any publicity is good publicity, unless they say that your hotel is cockroach infested or bed bug infested or something like that. But you can spin that positively if you are remediating the problem. But don't badmouth a competitor, because that just makes you look bad. And then never whine about your story. Oh, you didn't tell it right, or you didn't add this part, or you didn't run it when I wanted it run, or you said bad things about me as well as the good things, and I didn't want you to say any bad things about me. Or, you're not answering my phone calls. Again, journalists are busy people. They're on a deadline. If you whine to them, you become a blacklisted source. They will never, ever, ever use you. And if they talk to other journalists from other competing news organizations, which does occur from time to time, they will tell them, don't use this person ever. They're a pain in my rear. It's just not worth the time. So don't whine about your story. The only problem with publicity is you gotta kind of take what they give you. Publicity is worth 100 times what advertising is worth, but you have no control over the story, when it's run, how long it is. Those are things, unfortunately, that are outside of your control. If you are a control freak, if you have to be in absolute control, then advertising is your way. Just remember, you're spending 100 times more and you're getting 1/100th of the result with advertising versus publicity. So use publicity, but understand how it works. All right, first things first, and we talked about this a little bit. Who's the ideal customer you're trying to reach? Know who your ideal guest is, and then you can target all your publicity and all your marketing towards them. But your publicity specifically, your story ideas should be things that they're interested in. Where do you find your target media? Hopefully you have something in common, or you have a staff person who has something in common with your ideal guest. If you're a 59-year-old general manager and your ideal guest is 22-year-old women, you should have a 22-ish year old woman on your staff who can be your focal point for how 22-year-old women think, what they want, how they act, what they read, all of these things. Find your target media, whether it's you or whether it's a trusted staff person. What do you or your trusted staff person read and watch and listen to? This will give you an idea of what the focus for your business should be. And it'll give you an idea of potential media to target, potential journalists, assuming that yours align with your guests. So what do your customers, your guests, read, watch, and listen to? These are the things you should be looking at. What kinds of stories do they like? What kinds of activities do they like? What kinds of food do they like? What do they like to do in the evening? This is all stuff you should know. This is market research, basic market research, and you need to know what they're doing so that you can do what you need to do to target story ideas to them. The best places to find these things that will help you the most: local newspapers, if they read them. Now, younger people, the 22-year-olds, are probably not reading the newspaper. They may be reading the magazines. Free papers and newsletters, very possibly, especially if you're college age or just after college age, they may well be doing that. Local blogs and online sites are absolutely critical if you're going for a younger audience. They're not as critical for an older audience. But if it's a young audience, you better be online, and you better be where they are online, or at least looking at these sources if you want to target them. Local radio shows, local television shows. These are places you should look, and these are your first line. Always start small with your publicity efforts. You are not going to get on a national talk show your first time out, nor do you want to, because you're going to make mistakes. And if you're going to look like an idiot, you want to look like an idiot in the smallest possible venue. You learn how to swim by getting your toes wet first. You don't learn how to swim by getting thrown into a 40-foot deep tank. At least you shouldn't. Anyway, look at your local media. See what local media your ideal guest is looking at. Then you can move on to the national things, because you also want to see what sort of story ideas the national and international publications are looking at. Industry trade publications is going to be if you target more of a business traveler. All the other ones, just like your local ones. Find out what they're looking at, find out who's advertising there, because those are potential venture partners. But find out what they're reading and listening to and watching, and how they're watching it. Do they watch television on their computer or their phone, as opposed to watching it on actual television? If they do, you're probably not going to do very well with television advertising, because your target audience is not actually watching the television, so they won't see your ad. And then any other blogs or online sites, web radio shows. Do they listen to Sirius Radio, or watch web television shows where perhaps you could be a sponsor if you're looking at advertising, but certainly get publicity ideas from those shows. A web television show that I think is great, it's called See Ya Real Soon, and it's not spelled, it's SEEYAREEL soon.com. And it's a couple that takes multiple trips annually to Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And they are goofy and about as honest as you can get. They are not trying to be anyone besides whom they are. And they do this show for fun. And this show is inadvertently for Walt Disney World, who certainly doesn't need it, but inadvertently great advertising for them. These are things you should be finding. Is anybody doing a web TV show or done a YouTube video about your establishment? You can use this for publicity, and you can work with them for publicity, whoever the producer and creator of those videos is. Those are things to look at, but you should be looking to see what your target audience is watching. Then you have to develop a media list. What the heck is a media list? A media list is a list of the potential media that will run a story for you. So if there are 2 magazines, 2 newspapers, 1 radio or television show, and 20 blogs that are potential media sources, meaning they run stories about what you do in your area, that's your media list. Those are the only people you should focus on. You shouldn't focus on anybody else. They're a way for you to contact your key influencers, and these are the people you should be building relationships and to stay organized. I can give you a list of every major news organization in the world or in your country. You're not going to need it. It's a waste of time. You're not going to contact the business editor if you've got a home and garden story. You have to have a targeted media list, and you have to create your own list. That's the best way to do it. You can buy lists. You're wasting your time. It's better to make friends with the particular media individuals that you need, either online or over the phone, than it is to get a mass market media list and send a news story to everybody and their brother, and nobody will pay any attention to it if you do that. Then you need to look at editorial calendars. If you're looking at magazines or in some cases newspapers, they run certain types of stories at certain times throughout the year. You need to have those stories ready when they need them for pre-publication. Meaning if a magazine needs a story 2 months in advance for their June issue, then you better make sure you have it in there for that April deadline so that they have the story, and you need to have talked to them well in advance of that so that you've been approved to put a story in by April for their June issue. Find out what their editorial calendars are. For magazines and things like that, usually it's on their website. Down at the bottom there'll be some kind of link to where their editorial calendar is, because they want their subscribers also to know when certain things are going to be published. They plan way in advance in order to attract the advertisers. And like I said, you can find it in the media kit or advertising or somewhere at the bottom of their website. Or you can find information in the little small script after the index in most magazines. It'll tell you what various things are going on or how to get in touch with them to find out what things are going on. Now there are 2 ways to approach the media. One's good, one's not so good. We're going to talk about them briefly. Tailored, which is mostly the way I've been talking about. You've built your media list. You've got a story idea. Pick the one media person you think is the best person to send that story to, especially if you've got a story idea where you want them to do the story and you haven't crafted the entire story yourself. Find the right person, send them the idea. Now, if they completely say, nope, not going to do it, then find the next best person and then approach them one at a time until you find somebody who will run it, or you don't. But use the tailored approach. The other method is what I call the shotgun method, which means you send a press release to everybody on your media list, or even worse, everybody in the media, period. Now, if you've got a local interest story and you've pretty much got the whole story, you can maybe send a press release to all of your people. If it's something, urgent, timely, but most media people don't want to be running the same story as everyone else. If you're going to shotgun approach, meaning you've got something that's relevant, you need people to know now, I would send out a press release. I would send it to maybe your top 5 people on your media list that you think would be interested in this kind of story. And if it's a standard press release, it should be very clear that this is a mass release. This is not something you're targeting just at them. This is not a story idea. This is a flat-out press release story. So the whole story's there. They might contact you for additional information, but they don't need to. They can run it as is. That's the shotgun approach. Use that with caution. Only use it when there's something urgent you've got to get out to the media. Hey, we had a fire, but we're still open. 16 rooms are closed, but our ballroom's still open. We're still having a wedding this weekend at our facility, and we still have 38 more guest rooms, and they're not affected by, the damage and renovations from the old rooms. That might be timely. So send it out. At least one of the news organizations will run it because they will have a hole in their lineup somewhere. That's the shotgun approach. Now, what you should be doing now, get your paper out if you haven't done it already to write these things down. Clearly identify your target customer. Brainstorm the target media, like we talked about. Figure out who are the right media individuals for your story. Pick 5 to 10 outlets and get their contact information. You can find it usually online. Good Lord, if you have to, pick up the phone, ask who they are, ask how to get in touch with them. There's always a way to do that. Try Twitter. Twitter is a good way to find journalists if they're out there, or bloggers. Type in their name as a keyword search. Type in their name into Facebook as a keyword search. And you may find out their information. But make your own list. Start with 5 to 10. You can work up to maybe 20. I wouldn't have more than 20 sources because you won't be able to keep that organized. So start with 5 to 10. And that's pretty much it for today. You can visit us at Publicity for Tourism. This course is going to teach you a lot about publicity, and it's costing you nothing. However, I have a paid course that will teach you everything you need to know about how to get publicity. It's going to have templates. It is going to have contact lists for media. It's going to have everything you need, exactly how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, where to do it. If that's what you're looking for, and you're not just looking for a quick primer on publicity, then go to publicityfortourism.com, check it out. I've made it very reasonably priced. But that's pretty much it for this time. Come back for the next episode in another day or so.